Football made simple. Become great at your craft by finding ways to make it simple for those around you. This is the Coaching 101 podcast hosted by Find a Way Productions with your co-hosts Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson. What is up, coaches? This is the Coaching 101 podcast. I'm Coach Daniel Chamberlain. That's Coach Kenny Simpson. We're joined today by Price Holmes. Coach, man, thanks for jumping in the show with us today. This is Coaching 101, the holiday break edition. We're all got sickness, so I've got the crud. I've got kids literally just started yelling at me while the intro video was playing. Daddy, I need this. Like, yeah. All right, so that's how it is when you're dad life and you're on the holiday break.
Price got exiled into his garage, I see, so he's got kicked all the way out of the house.
Yeah, I've been running daddy daycare half the day while my wife's at work. So
yeah, man, it's
jump out here to the garage.
That's
right. My middle son invited, and I'm not exaggerating, 23 kids over last night, and some of them are still here. So if you hear that, that's what that's all about.
Now I understand that he's become quite the connoisseur on the grill, right? Like he's throwing stuff down.
He did. Well, the other night he only invited 8 of them over, and he made over 40 smash burgers. I thought, well, Jamie and I went out. We had something to go do. And I thought, well, when we come back, I'm gonna have one of those smash burgers. Those jokers ate all 40. I mean, those kids. Of course, it's football or basketball kids or whatever. So it's been crazy. You know, I'm sure Price has got 2 under the age of like 4 or 5. It's crazy. And then as they get older, it's a different type of crazy. It's more fun at times, but my goodness gracious, my grocery bill is going to be out the roof, you know.
So mom and dad build a new house, and then Braden gets to host all the parties. Is that what I'm hearing?
And here's the deal. If you're a coach and you have young kids, my wife had to remind me of this when it was midnight and they were playing hide and seek. And that's not quiet with, teenagers. And she just said they could be out doing a lot of other things, but we know where they are.
That's true.
So us losing some sleep, I was like, well, way to be optimistic. I'm still mad. We're doing hide and seek at 12.
Y'all go do dumb stuff now, okay? Go be kids elsewhere. Dad's trying to sleep.
I said, why don't you go to the field house? I said, don't send them there. And I was like, no, never mind. Stay here. And anyway, but it's been crazy. I'm sure it's crazy for Price too. I've been around his oldest boy, Parker, is so much like my middle boy, Braden, where it's just constant energy. So it's and I'm Daniel, you got 2 to like it too, I think. So
yeah, two of them under 7, so it's fun. Coach Holmes, man, first time on the show, so like I said, thanks for jumping in with us. Why don't you go ahead and give us your introduction? Just talk about your journey into coaching here.
Yeah, so after high school, I played college football at the University of Arkansas. Walked on and played there for 5 years, and then I went to school initially. I thought my first few years, I thought I wanted to go to dental school. So took a bunch of hard classes kind of for no reason. And so then I switched to kinesiology, applied exercise science. I always really loved the weight room when I was in high school and then playing in college, and spent a couple months after graduation looking for jobs. And we had one open up at the U of A in the weight room. And so started there, worked for 3.5 years under Ben Herbert he was the head strength coach at the time. And then in 2017, I made the jump to high school and went to Batesville High School. I was there from 2017 through May of this year, and then came to Southside. So I've been there for 7 or 8 months now.
Got tired of losing all those trophy bridge.
Yeah, touchy subject.
Yeah. I'll say this with Price. Here's the deal with Price, and he won't give you this, is I think he's one of the best minds in this world. I was always on the podcast. And so I went after him every chance I got to hire a coach because I'm not dumb. I've been a head coach long enough that if you put really, really good guys at what they do around you, and Price was doing great things, and I could see it because it's 5 miles away. And I was like, man, I want that for our kids. And so was really, really blessed this offseason to finally get him over here. And he got to do my son's senior year, and I've got a 7th grader about to come through. And man, I'm thrilled what he's going to be able to do for our athletes. And he had done it I'd watched him do it for 8 years for kids real close. And so It's one of those deals where I think maybe he just finally got tired of telling me no, because I'd come after him every chance I got, because I just think he's really good at what he does.
That's a good. You look like a dentist, man. You could have definitely gone the dental route. You got the look down.
Well, I struggled in some of the classes, so it probably wasn't a.
Hey, I went through
my dream was going to end at some point.
Yeah, I was a pre-med guy, so I went through all the I have a biology degree, so I feel you. Like the chemistries, the OChems, I loved it, but it wasn't for everybody. It wasn't for you got to be able to study a long time.
Yeah. Well, now I'm doing junior high PE, so
I mean, that's a whole nother animal, right? That's still difficult. Just yeah, it is what it is, I guess. Kenny, why don't you go ahead and give us our quote of the week, man, and then we'll just jump right in here.
Yeah, so quote of the week comes out of Team Themes volume number 5. I don't quote myself often, so you got to kind of be nice to me here. But this one is a quote that apparently, when I get on there and do these team themes, I put in the subject and I look for what I'm looking for, and the internet brought me to me. And I went, whoa, it's a chance to quote yourself. I'm not going to pass up on that one.
Let's go.
So this one actually comes out of Team Themes 5, but it's actually me. Apparently, I'd said this at a clinic. Somebody posted it, and then Google found it, and so it ended up in a book. But it says this one, it's if how you play without the football shows how much you love your teammates. If that is true, then how much effort you coach the kids on your bench shows your love of athletes. And that's also true. So kind of pointing that back at coaches. We want to always talk about, love without the ball. And then as a coach, and I've watched this with Price, he works just as hard with, my son, and we've got a couple other kids that are going to go play college football. He spends time with them and works with them, but he also spends time with, realistically, kids are probably never going to benefit us on the football field. And I think that's why that quote kind of came to mind when I thought of Price, is when this world is strength and conditioning or coaching, whatever it is, there's times you're putting in work that you're never really going to reap a personal reward for. Like, it's not going to really benefit you. And I think that's almost impossible. One of the questions I'm going to ask Price when we get to it is, how do you diversify when you have 7th graders that have hair under their arms and 7th graders that can't lift a barbell? And so I thought the quote kind of fit this topic, because I've been able to watch him, how he handles that stuff.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Coach, because I'm adding a question right now about intro age to weight. I've got a 7-year-old that's like, I've started actually using my home gym now. I see Coach sitting in his home gym, and we bought one during COVID, and I've used it 3 or 4 times. So I finally got consecutive nights going out there, and he's like, "Oh, Daddy, I want to go," which is why I started. Like, it's time for him to get out there, but like, it's going to be a piece of PVC for a while, right? Like, so I kind of want to know what the age is on getting him started. Mm-hmm. I should have known this was a Kenny Simpson quote. Even you wouldn't have tagged it, because it's an if-then statement. You know what I mean? Like, if then isn't the I don't even. That is the root of all Kenny Simpson right there, if-then statement.
That's a wing T, man. That's a wing. The guy's a long time before me.
All right, man. Real quick, want to mention to you guys Ace Sports. If you have not reached out to Ace Sports this year, go acesports.com. You can email mark.bridges@acesports.com. You can hit me up, and I'll kind of run you through it. Kenny's put up 2 of these boards at his programs. You can reach out to him and talk about the successes he's seen using Ace Sports and getting their video.
Well, one side note here, one of the monster boards came from where Price did. Batesville put probably the biggest board in the state up. I think Mark did that board too. It's impressive.
Yeah, the biggest ones in the industry have all been Aces. I know Bixby, local to me, theirs is Ace Sports. Was the biggest in the nation. I think someone finally knocked them out at high school level, of course. Those colleges, man, those are insane. So if you're going to go compete with them, good luck to you. But there's sizes for everybody. No school's too big or too small. Ace Sports can do something for you. Winning Edge Performance Analytics. If you haven't reached out to Doug yet, this is another great place to get started this spring. Go ahead and get your annual subscription started here in January. And that will help you, give you some time to run through old tape, get used to using the product. The biggest place we stumbled was trying to use it on that first Friday night. So if you aren't using the Winning Edge Performance Analytics, if you're not using that earlier and kind of get your groove, how you're going to put in that data on Friday night, it can kind of become overwhelming. So jump in, knock out a few tapes with your scout or with your coaches when you're just running through scout film, and I think it'll be good for you. But man, it's sure is nice Saturday morning waking up and all of your film is tagged. You don't have any issues. It's a really good feeling. So jump over to winningedgeperformanceanalytics.com and check that out. So let's jump into part 1 here. So Coach Holmes, you are kind of first of all, we're doing this series right now on the podcast. of giving coaches systems, places they can go to hire a professional, which is something I actually learned from Joe Daniel. If you don't know what you're doing, hire somebody, right? And that it's okay to say, now we're all men. Most of us are alpha type men, and we're the kings of, nah, I'll figure it out, right? Like, I can do this. I don't need any help. But we have to get to that point where it's like, if you don't know how to run buck sweep, you go buy Kenny's system. That's what you should do. You should go buy a professional system, somebody that's already doing it. For you coaches, if people don't understand strength and conditioning, they need to be coming to you and talking to you. So that's why we have you on today, is just to let you kind of spread the word of what you're doing for people, and giving them a resource to dig into. So question one here, kind of what do you think is like that main key of success for players gaining strength and speed and athleticism in the offseason, moving in the next football season?
Really just consistency. Stacking day. You hear people talking about stacking days, and it's true. Like, really getting stronger, gaining more muscle mass, losing fat mass, getting faster, jumping higher. It's not overly complicated. It just takes consistency, and that's what I think most people lack when they're not seeing those gains that they want. It's just a lack of consistency. Some of that's their fault, and then some of it is the fault of where they're at. Maybe they're a multi-sport kid, and for 2 or 3 months they're in a sport where that coach doesn't lift. And I think if they're not provided those things, they've got to find ways to continue to do those things, even though it's not required of what that sport coach is asking them to do.
Yeah, getting kids in the weight room, especially if you're someone trying to establish a culture. Now, you guys are at Southside, where I assume the culture is pretty well set. 10-0 season, a 9-1 season. What are y'all, like 12 playoff games in the last 4 years or whatever? Like, y'all been doing the thing for a while. It's a little easier when you got some success to get kids to buy into success. But when you're trying to take over a program and turn something around and build a culture, that was one of the hardest things we dealt with down at Stillwell when me and Coach Collins were there, was just trying to get, you're talking 3 kids a day, right? Like, we got 28 on the football team, and 3 of them can show up consistently in the offseason to get better. So kind of how did you work that? And have you been places you've had to do that?
Yeah, you've got to find ways, and everywhere is going to be different, but you've got to find ways to build interest. So I've done dozens of things, and I'm even thinking of things to do this off season, but it's just ways to celebrate when somebody is there and is doing a good job. Maybe they've PR'd on something, like Coach Simpson said earlier. It may be a kid that is not going to play, but when they're celebrated, in front of their teammates, maybe it's a kid who's struggled showing up and he showed up 5 days in a row. Then, at the end of the week, having him be one of the guys that get clapped up, just to give them some kind of motivation and positive reinforcement to showing up and participating.
Yeah, and I've seen Price do several of these things, and we've had to do several things. And I think, Price, you've been blessed to be, I know Batesville, they've had a good weight program for a long time, had a lot of success. Southside, we didn't have it originally, so I can relate to Daniel. I think the first day I showed up at Southside, we did have more than 3. We had about 12, but 3 of them were wearing jeans and boots, and one of them was wearing flip-flops. And so it took a long, long time, I think, to create that buy-in. But we've done things from, where we did T-shirts for whoever went up the most, to where we did, like, we take them to the state weight meet every year. It's not my favorite thing to do, but it's a chance for some of them to compete because they have weight classes, and you can have a chance to be competitive in that. And I think, to me, that's the type of stuff where kids want to be in the weight room. And I think one of the neat things that you younger guys are doing that, like, I was always, and I don't know how, Daniel, you're kind of in the middle of this, maybe, I don't know, but like, I hated music in the weight room. I thought it needed to be like a place where you went. And now I've had back to back 3 of them that are really good in the weight room. And I think the best one here, and all of them love music. And I'm just going, well, this is what you talk about. You hire people that know more than you do. And if they're comfortable with it, I better be comfortable with it. So I think that's making, but I think I'm assuming the idea for Price is that's making this a place where kids can relate and want to come and want to be part of and want it to be something that they're enjoying doing.
Oh, but I don't. I had got pulled away for daddy duty for a moment. I don't steer this in the wrong way. You're talking about music in the weight room. Individually, I've always wanted music jamming, but it seems like when you're trying to organize, it's like having the music too loud at football practice. Like, how are we hearing the whistles and the calls? And I mean, not that you don't need to practice that, because obviously Friday nights are not quiet, but especially, are you on the whistle kind of guy, Coach Holmes, or are you?
Yeah, I am. A lot of that's just due to the time. When I first started, we were on a double blocked athletic schedule, so we had them for an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes every day. So it didn't have to be as structured to the set. But now I almost have to / want to know going into a day. I know how many sets we're going to get in. I know exactly when the warm-up's going to be done. I know the transitions. I know when the stations will be done. That helps me kind of budget time for what we're going to do or not do. Because really, like, any program is going to be, if people ask, what do we need to do? Or can we do this school's program? Well, everything's predicated on how much time you have, how many coaches you have to help, and what kind of equipment you have. So you could say, like, hey, we're going to look at, I know Bixby does an amazing job with everything they do, but you can't just say, hey, I'm at school, whatever, we're going to carbon copy their program, because it's not going to be the same setup. But with the music stuff, like, I don't care. I tell the kids, they probably don't want to listen to what I listen to. So if they come up with a playlist that's clean, we can play. I told them we can play Mozart. I don't care. To me, like, whatever they are motivated to listen to, I'm all for it. Now there's times where I've got to turn it off to coach, specific things, but I've got a decent voice I can yell with. And, to me, the music, I could care less what they listen to.
So I'm going to ask you about efficiency here, because I've kind of always heard and completely believe that, like, these kids we're coaching, they got enough testosterone in their bodies right now. I don't care if you told them to go pick grass every day, they're going to get strong. You know what I mean? So how does a young coach or someone trying to turn this culture around, how do they program an efficient program? What's the kind of the things they need to focus on? And I may even be pulling a question from the back of the show here, but it kind of hit. But anyway, how do we be efficient with that testosterone and that strength building so that we're getting the best athlete on the back end of all this?
So one thing I've heard from people, a guy named Monty Sparkman is down in Texas, and I've heard him say it a lot, is don't burn the steak. So to me, any idiot can take a group of 7th graders or 8th graders or 9th graders or 10th graders. Anybody can take them in there and leave them, like, with their tongues dragging out and throwing up and where they can't walk. Like, anybody can do that. The hard thing is trying to find ways to achieve the things we talked about earlier, like strength, speed, power, increase muscle mass, decrease fat mass, do those things without burning the steak. So I kind of float in between. People talk about minimal effective dose, and then you got, like, the don't burn the steak. I kind of like being somewhere in the middle towards the top, but I've done it long enough. I know kind of where that point is where you're probably going to burn them. And once they get burned, you can run into things of overtraining. You can send kids to the hospital, lose your job. So you got to be careful with that. But I don't think you have to baby them, but you can find ways, super simple ways, really, to get kids stronger. But you got to look at it from a long-term lens. And that's what I would say, coaches get more bored with the programming than the kids do. They, most of the time, they couldn't even tell you what you did last Tuesday. Like 90% of them, you ask them, name 3 lifts from last Tuesday, they don't even remember. But coaches will get bored doing the same stuff. It's kind of monotonous, and they start just looking for new flashy things to do, when really, like, the fundamentals over time for junior high and senior high kids will get them really, really strong.
Yeah, I think one thing I had to do with Brock, I know the guy I had before Price, and I'll probably do it with Price as well, is because as coaches, there's a couple of things we want out of the weight room. We want stronger, more athletic kids. That's number one. Number two, we do want to kind of establish some type of culture. And I think that that's one of the hardest things I've seen coaches mess up on the most. And I did it too when I was younger. Like Price said, we try to use the weight room almost as like a boot camp or a military type camp or something like that to try to create toughness. Now, I'm not suggesting that there's not maybe a time and a place where you might be able to do that every now and then, but that's probably not, those two things don't really go hand in hand. Like getting guys ready for the military, they're getting ready to go get shot at and maybe die. Like that, they're not trying to make those guys world-class athletes. And sometimes as coaches, I think at least I did, I equated it together. So it was hard for me to watch. I had Derek Smith before, who I went out and got, and he'd come in and I'd be like, that's it. Like, that's all we're going to do. And he said, that's it. And I've watched Brock do the same thing. I've watched Price do the same thing. And it can be hard as a coach because you feel like, oh man, I think we could do more, but I think it's also good to leave the kids wanting more and to understand that they're still growing. Like if we work really hard for 3 months, we're not all of a sudden just going to be freaks. It's over time. Like it's 7th grade to 12th grade where you're going to see the growth. And so that's been difficult for me where I've had to really defer to guys like Price. So Price, talk more about that. Like, where the don't overburn, whatever. How are you trying to, because I know you do a good job with it, where we are trying to create mental toughness. We are trying to create an atmosphere of efficiency, and I've seen you do a really, really good job of that. So what are some things you're doing in that world?
Yeah. So from the efficiency standpoint, and Daniel, you asked about doing things on a whistle. There are times where I won't do that. Won't be on the whistle on a set or on a rep. And it kind of depends on when it is in the year. Like a lot of times in season, our lifts are shorter, and we're not going to get as much done just due to time. But like in the off season early on, especially the first probably 2 months to 3 months, we're going to do almost everything on the whistle. I think when they learn the tempo that they have to do a rep or do a set or rotate, that's what I'm kind of trying to teach them early on. Eventually, they kind of get to the point where I trust them more. But our 7th graders, for example, will have really everybody in the room working except for one guy. So like we'll have a guy squatting, a guy spotting. Then on the other end, we'll have a guy dumbbell benching and a guy inverted rowing, and then a guy goblet squatting and a guy either PVC or dumbbell RDLing. And everybody's down on a whistle, up on a whistle. That helps me for 2 reasons. They understand a little more of the tempo that they need to work with on each rep, but I can also single out kids too of who's not squatting to depth, or is he hinging the right way, or his hands right on the dumbbells, or is his core not engaged. So it's easier for me after each rep to then say like, hey, Daniel, you got to squeeze your glutes. Hey, coach, hey, Kenny, you need to turn your hands this way. And then we're going into the next rep, and with those younger guys, I'm really not concerned at all with any load. It's just foundational movement patterns. So it's a lot easier to get that dialed in. And if you watch we've had our 7th graders now for about 4 weeks. I think if you watched them, you'd be like, man, those guys, and I'm not bragging on myself and Coach Gould, but you could watch them and say like, man, those kids are coached. And that's my ultimate goal with what we do from 7th grade to 12th grade is I could care less if a college coach or somebody just coming to watch, if they said, man, they've got 20 guys that can bench 315, or they've got 20 guys that can squat 405. That stuff doesn't matter to me at all. What I do want somebody, if they came in and watched, I would want them to say, man, those kids are coached. Like every one of those kids, I can see them getting their grip. I can see them taking 2 steps back before I can see them setting their feet. I can see them setting their core, whatever it is. I think a decent coach could watch a group and be like, man, that group's coached. Because we could be at a different school or get different setting with different clientele, and we could probably have the 20 guys benching 315, 20 guys squatting 405 plus, 20 guys cleaning 250 plus. A lot of that's based on your clientele. But I do want people to say those kids are well coached, and I think that's what you have to do when you're running a strength and conditioning program is anybody can write the programs, but our job is to coach them. So a poorly written but a really well coached program is going to see better results than a really well written program that's poorly coached.
I love that you're talking fundamentals. When you were talking about the grip and hey, I can tell those kids are coached. It reminded me of the John Wooden story. He used to teach his kids how to put their socks on correctly, because if you put your socks on correctly, you don't get blisters, and your best ability is availability, right? So like if you go out and get injured because you're doing something stupid in the weight room, it doesn't matter that you could bench 315 for 2 weeks and then you got yourself hurt and now you're not good as a football player, right? Because I can't use you because you tore a pec or whatever, dislocated a thing or tore a rotator cuff. So, it just goes back to those fundamentals. Like if everything's important, right? I mean, you've got to do it from the base level. So, man, I love it. That's a really excellent answer. I want to jump into the second part here, and we're actually going to go the opposite way now. So, Kenny wants to really know about your don't ever do this list. So, what things in the weight room, whether it's exercises, philosophy, we've already talked about don't burn the steak, and then that minimal threshold, but besides those two things, what are some of the things that are on the you don't ever do that list?
I know the biggest for me, and I think it should be for any coach, is don't do something that you can't teach. So there's a big controversy on like Olympic lifting and cleaning or snatching or whatever versus not. Like, can you get the same result by doing something else? Yeah. Some people, myself included, like I love teaching Olympic lifts. I feel like I'm well versed in it just through experience and being around people that are really good at it. I myself have done it for 20 years.
Right.
However, that's not it. All they are is just a means to an end, right? Like everything in the weight room is a tool. So if there's something that a coach cannot teach, then they should not do it. Whether that's a clean, a snatch, you shouldn't even if you can't teach a group to back squat, then don't back squat the group, or learn from others on how to teach it effectively. But everything in the weight room they're tools they're just means to an end. And like a squat, like we're looking to develop lower body and posterior chain strength. One thing I'm going to try to be better at this off season, as I've been around our kids longer, is we're going to have a couple of kids who they will not have the ability to back squat. And that's not because they're not trying. It's either an anatomical issue, a mobility, flexibility, whatever it is. But there comes a point where you got to say as a coach, if this kid is inefficient moving in this way, is it going to help him by adding load to it? The answer is probably no. Are there other ways that we can get there? And same thing with the cleans. Once we get through this first kind of phase where we'll do a ton of technique work, there are going to be some kids on our team that won't clean, and they will have other options. Well, it won't be their option. I'll tell them what to do, but they are going to do other things to develop the things that we're trying to get out of the clean, right? Usually don't have an issue with the bench press, but we're going to have lifts that somebody's not going to be punished. Like they're not going to be sent to the pink room away from everybody. They're just going to do something else. And I'll explain it to them as we're just looking to develop lower body strength, or we're just looking to develop this pulling strength, and this is going to be better suited for you. And I think the more you do that, you don't, people talk about trying to jam a square peg into a round hole. Like the weight room, they're tools to develop strength, speed, power output. So let's use them as tools and not just say, hey, Alabama back squats everybody, let's back squat, or they front squat, or whatever it is. Like right. To me, there's no lift that is wrong. It's typically either who's teaching it, how it's being taught, or what's being allowed.
I love it because that goes hand in hand with football, right? You shouldn't do things you don't know how to coach because you're not going to be successful at it. But now we're talking about loading a kid up and having them do a thing you don't know. Coach, we see you at the bottom. Can you give us a template to follow for workouts that I can do with the kids? We're going to cover that here towards the end when we get into kind of the resources that Coach Holmes is going to try to produce. Jumping to the next part here, Coach, and that's how do you suggest coaches prioritize their lifts versus their speed workouts or both?
Yeah. So, and that's kind of a topic that's well discussed, these days of like, what's more important. I try to look at it more generally of like, I know that probably 99% of the kids that I work with are not ever going to reach that strong enough level, right? There comes a point where there's diminishing returns or you don't see returns on a number, right, with lifting. I'll give you an example. There's a kid I worked with, just blessed to be around him. 99% of what he experienced was due to his genetics and his attitude, but worked with a baseball player, Gage Wood. He was a first-round pick this year in the MLB draft. And he got to the point, I think he front squatted maybe 385 or something like that. This was a few years ago. And then after that, he was done. He hit it easily. But he was done. And I told him he was done. He kind of got mad. But I tried to explain to him, like, you front squatting 405 is not going to make you throw it 10 miles an hour faster. Like, it's just not. Like, you've reached a threshold here. We're going to do something else. And so I had a quarterback a few years ago, ended up being a really good D2 quarterback. And he cleaned 305, kind of one of our last rough testing times going into his senior year, and he wanted to clean 315, and I wouldn't let him. He smacked 305 and explained to him, like, that will be cool for you, but it's not going to do anything for your performance. He had kind of reached a threshold, and he ended up he went to OBU and set their clean record. I think he cleaned like 375 as a quarterback. But at the time, like, it didn't, to me, that was just kind of his threshold. So as far as prioritizing I've seen this graphic before of, and it makes visual sense for me of when you're going to lose speed gains versus when you're going to lose strength gains. And your strength gains are going to, if you kind of imagine like two cups, right? You poked a hole in the bottom. You could poke a smaller hole in the strength gains. Like, it's gonna leave you a lot slower. Your speed gains are gonna leave you a lot faster. So if you imagine that cup equal water, it has a lot bigger hole. It's gonna drain out a lot quicker. And I don't have the chart with me. I've got it somewhere on my desk, but it kind of talks about the days, and the strength gains are somewhere in that 20 to 28 day range, whereas your speed, it's like a 6 to 8 day range.
Right.
So I think if you consistently train kids to get stronger, I think 99% of the kids we're all working with in high school, they just need to get stronger. I gave you two outliers, and I've been doing this for 9+ years in high school. But prioritize strength, but also prioritize your speed work. If it can be super simple, but if you can get your kids to sprint 1 to 2 times a week from their 7th grade year through their 12th grade year, most likely, if you structure it the right way, they're going to get faster. How fast, I don't know. That's dependent on who mommy and daddy were.
Yeah, right.
But and Coach Simpson knows this. We talk about it a lot. Is like, everybody's got a potential. Everybody's got a ceiling of like what their ceiling is. We wanted to get them bumping their head on that ceiling. We can't turn a kid who's 5'5", with a 10-inch vertical into Michael Jordan. It ain't happening. But we want him to get as fast as he could have gotten with us and as strong as he could have gotten with us. So I think if you'll, at least my kind of minimum, if possible, is 3 times a week to strength train. I think 4 is a sweet spot. 5, you're going to have to watch it, how you're doing your volume, just to not overdo certain things, and then your speed work, that kind of minimum of 2 days a week consistently, I think is where you'll see the biggest gains.
Yeah, and I love, I think it was Coach Smith that got on here and told us about what did Derek say, Kenny? I think it was something like it was right in there, 18 to 21 days for your strength and 5 to 8 or something.
Yeah. I can't remember. Is that when he did the don't run 110s? He was on that spiel for a bit, like the run. I kind of thought that's what Price was going to go. I thought he was going to go with don't let kids do distance training if they're trying to get faster, that kind of stuff. So, but I liked where he went. I really like that. We've used that with our kids a bunch too. Where you bump your head on the ceiling. I've definitely 100% stolen that from Coach Holmes. I love the way that just the visualization of it's our job as coaches to get our kids where they need to be, and that's different, like you said. So I do want to before we move on, I know you got some other stuff built here, but which of the two do you think you can change the most, speed or strength?
It's kind of a tough one. So I think both are tied to their genetic predisposition, right? Like I think just if we all think of like when we grew up, some kids were just twitchy, and some kids weren't. I was one of the ones that weren't. I wasn't. But
I was on all these weren't lists.
Yeah, the weren't
wrong
list.
kids. No, not me.
Yeah. And I think strength is probably easier to gain because you can follow super simple progressions and just slightly increase the load, and you kind of recycle that from the time that they start until the time that they finish. And without getting super complex into the programming, they're going to get stronger. The speed stuff at times is harder because the gains are so small. So like, when a 7th grader can barely bench the bar or press the bar or whatever, and like when he's a senior and he can press 225, like that was a massive jump. Whereas their speed and jumping ability at times, they're very small gains, and they ride the wave. Like if you tracked, and I've done this, if you track someone's jumps, like whether it's a vertical jump, a counter movement jump, a broad jump, double broad jump, and you track those things over time, you're going to see a lot of this, right? You hope that it rides that wave and that median line is slowly increasing. The strength gains can come a lot faster. Like we've all seen it where the guy, from this time he's gone up in 8 weeks, he's gone up 35 or 45 pounds in his whatever. You're not going to see a guy though run I'm big on like fly 10s or short, like 10s, 20s, their acceleration times is like a tenth of a second is a huge jump, right? So it's harder to equate or tell somebody like, yeah, I went down 0.15 on my 20. It's easier to say like, I've gone up 40 pounds on my bench. Right. And so I think those things, you see them easier. And when you're tracking speed specifically, it's a lot harder to see the massive jumps. So,
yeah, I mean, speed is also weird because we've determined for whatever reason in the culture that like you can't train speed, right? You're born with it. Fast kids are just born fast, and the longer. So I help sell athletic speed and movement, and we use Del Basquet's training. He's a guy out of San Diego, California, that's been doing it since the 70s, and like. It's absolutely 100% false that you can't train speed, but people, like you're saying, it's not something that's easily trackable, especially if you don't know what you're doing to train it anyways. You just keep giving the ball to the fast kid. Like, no, you're the fast kid. You're the punt returner. You're this, because that's the fast kid. But I always think about offensive linemen. I'm a lineman guy at heart. So if my pulling guard can go from and I use a 40 because I'm whatever generation uses 40 times, but if you get him from a 6 flat to a 5.7, that's okay, right? Like that's not terrible for a big boy. That's a good size and weight to be a starting offensive guard. I mean, we don't expect him to get under 5 seconds. Like that would be asinine. Like there's a whole bunch of skill kids that don't end up breaking 5 seconds if we're not out there coach timing it with our thumb on the timer and we're starting it late and cutting it a little short, right?
And that's one other thing too that goes with speed and strength is kind of carrying on with what Price is saying. I think strength wise, I could mess it up. Like as a coach that maybe doesn't know a lot about strength, I could mess up a guy's strength, but probably as long as I'm just not naive and doing really dumb things, I'm probably not going to mess up the kid's strength.
Right.
You can unintentionally make kids slower, like practice for 3 hours. You just did it. So I think in my world, that's what I'm more cognizant as a head coach of. I got to be careful because I literally could make a kid slower from August to November if I'm not careful. Probably not going to make him weaker in the weight room unless we're just doing dumb things or just not lifting.
Yeah. I think there's enough details in running fast that you, like you said, you can intentionally. It's like taking a quarterback who has a natural throwing pattern and trying to make him throw like Tom Brady. Like, let him do what he does, fix it and get it within, left and right guides, but you're probably not going to reshape the way they run. You know what I mean? So you can slow them down. Yeah.
On your speed. I mean, just think about the time if you've been here coaching and you took the receivers, like I've had the receivers, we go over there and we did 10 go routes in 5 minutes. Well, none of those were probably full speed. Not one of them was. And I probably trained those kids to naturally be slower.
Yeah.
Like that's why it's such a dangerous game. And, that's why hopefully we get better in that world.
Got a little question here before we move on. If the jumps in speed aren't so high in speed tracking, basically saying if you can't see speed change very much, is it necessary to time it on a weekly basis, or should they be more quarterly or something?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think one thing, if you're timing them consistently and you got like whatever you're using, like you can use Free Lap Dasher, Brower, you can hand time them, whatever it is. I do think you can see, and what I try to do is like there's certain things foundationally I know will work strength training, right? There are foundationally things I think we all could do that will work in their speed training. And I think as a coach, you kind of follow like a 90-10 rule almost. Like 90% of this, like we know what we're going to get out of this. And then 10% of it, you got to experiment some. Like I think you got to see, like, is this going to help us or not? And when you're tracking them weekly, we talked about that trend, how it will kind of undulate up and down. We want it to slowly increase, whether that's their strength or we want their speed getting faster. But if you're going through a long period of time where you should be running faster and you're not, and you have that data, if you're able to track it, I think that does give you insight of, okay, is our volume too high in the weight room? Is our running volume too high? Is our plyo volume too high or too intense? Like early in off season, I 100% know we're going to be fatigued to a point where we're not going to be, I don't think, our fastest in January, February, or March. I know we're not going to be at our best jumping ability, sprint ability, etc. By design, right? I know that's a chunk of time that we can get more of that volume in the weight room. But on the other end, as we start getting closer to the end of the spring, I do want our jumps to start peaking. I do want our sprints to start peaking in that 18-week block. And so if you have the ability to track the data and you are doing it consistently, I think it'll help you see the trends. So I still think it is worth it.
I was thinking right along with trends though, just you get to see what times of the year kids fall off and you can kind of pair that with probably correlation in the beginning, but causation eventually, right? Like Is it you going into spring break and kids are just kind of off in la la land and they're just not really into it as much? Or when you get back off these breaks, there's something. Are we losing a lot when we don't really have to? Obviously, I think we all need breaks. I'm not saying send stuff home with kids on breaks. Give their bodies a chance to recover. But you can kind of see those, like our expectations. Hey, we had a kid break a 4.4 or whatever I don't know what your fly 10 speeds are really fast. We got a kid to hit 22 miles an hour, and then he comes back and he's a lot slower. Like, okay, we got to kind of have to tune this back because he's also going to get a summer break before we get back into football, right? Like,
yeah.
What do those speeds look like after 7-on-7's been going on for 6 weeks? Or so that last week of off season may not be the same kid you get back for first week of fall camp.
Well, and when you're looking at those trends too, what helps you, I think, when you're consistently measuring them, whether they're jumps or sprints or both, or is say Daniel over here, he had a bad day, right, or a bad couple weeks, but generally the rest of the team, they were trending in a good way. Well, maybe Daniel's girlfriend broke up with him, and as a 15-year-old kid, that could crush them, like we've all been there. So, or maybe if everybody's trending down, but one guy's trending up, well, maybe his crush called him cute at lunch or something, that'll boost him up, just because that's the age they're at. So it gives you a better glimpse of, like, not the fastest or the slowest, but that kind of median average, like what's everybody doing. And really, though, I think the only way to know that is if you are tracking it.
I love it. Kenny,
I'm not as smart as you. Well, yeah, as you guys are talking about tracking, that's well above my pay grade. I just know that if I walk out there and tell kids to run fast, and then if I walk out there and tell them to run fast and I know that I'm timing it, the motivation changes. Just like all of a sudden, oh, you get a clock out here to time me. Or I didn't want to do that last year because we were out there and I was like, crap, I don't have it. So we just started making them race. Like, hey, I don't want to lose and he doesn't want to lose. So let's put these two fast kids and you're going to race a 20-yard dash. We're going to do 3 of these, and that's all the speed training we're doing. So I think there's motivation. I think you can't just say we're just going to line them up and run fast. Like, there's got to be some kind of motivation to do that.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to switch a couple of questions here, but how early I told you I'd come back to this. How early should kids be getting in the weight room? If I've got a school that the culture is not very good, or maybe it's great, it don't matter. When should kids start getting in working fundamentals? And we're just going to pretend that, like, the guy coaching them knows what he's doing. He's not.
Yeah. So that's the key, I think, is just if somebody is proficient in teaching, and maybe it's only 3 things, like how to squat, hinge, push and pull. So I don't think there's an age where you can say, like, oh, these 8-year-olds don't need to they don't need to learn how to hinge right now, right? Or they don't need to learn how to squat. I think they do. I think what people do sometimes is they try to do things with an 8-year-old that you would do those same things with an 18-year-old. Yeah. And so when you work with, and I've done this before, when you work with really young kids, it needs to be short, sweet, concise, and it needs to be fun. Because if they're not professional athletes, if they're 8 years old and they've only been getting themselves dressed for 2 years, they probably don't need to, unless it's super detailed and structured and all that stuff, they may not need to learn how to clean and jerk yet, but if they learn some basic fundamentals, how to hinge, how to squat, how to press, and that could be doing a wall press, leaning against the wall and just like, here's where your elbows go. Here's how you pull. Here's a band. I think those things, and when it's made fun, that helps them long term.
Yeah, I love it. Like I said, I've got a 7-year-old that's going to hit the gym with me today. It'll be his first day, and he's not going to do much. You know what I mean? It's just, if I can find a piece of PVC or a curtain rod or something, that's probably what he's working today for chest day. Until he can knock out some push-ups and not look like a goofball or struggle through 5 or whatever. But I grew up in the era of like, oh, it's bad for their growth plates. Your kids shouldn't be lifting weights because it'll make them short the rest of their lives, or their arms won't grow to full length. Like there's all this stuff, and I don't know how many years we wasted of like potential really good athletes, and I guess you really, I don't know, you shouldn't care so much, but I always think about like that's those kids' ability to go to college somewhere or whatever is like what you've trained them foundationally up until, like you said, till you start loading them down. Maybe their 8th grade year, the weight doesn't matter as much, but if the foundation's there, their numbers look great. They pop off the page for a recruiter. That's better for them. So
I'd say too, wherever there's a myth, like you told the myth, your arms aren't going to grow or whatever it is. There's always a slight element of truth in that stuff. Like that, the element of truth from that probably came from somebody who didn't know what he was doing, hurting a young kid who didn't know what they were doing. Like that's where the truth came from. When they're young, they can't do as much stuff, so you got to be careful with what you allow them to do, and more than likely somebody did, because it's the same thing I've heard from the basketball coach where some 6'8" kid, his dad doesn't want him to squat because squatting's bad for basketball. Well, maybe his dad got hurt because nobody taught him how to squat correctly. There's always an element of truth somewhere inside these myths.
It doesn't help us that everybody in the NBA looks like a stinking beanpole right now. Like there's no more Shaquille O'Neal's, trying to get basketball guys to lift a weight. Seems harder and harder. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's running around, murdering the league, and it's like, I don't know if he's ever been in a weight room. Obviously he has, but he doesn't look it, All right, man, we're going to go through some rapid fire questions for you real quick, Coach, and then we'll close out and talk about resources and such. So when you're ready here, we'll go, and it's just as quick as you can answer them.
Daniel, I'm going to do you go, and then I'm going to do one, and I've got mine or my own just price questions, have nothing to do with strength and conditioning.
Hey, there we go. So we'll alternate. All right, here we go. One exercise you'll never remove from your programming.
Front squat.
Ooh, that's a good one.
One coach you'd want to go hang out with if you had to pick one from our staff.
One what?
Coach on our staff that you had to hang out with just to hang out.
Bo Gould.
Ooh, that's a good one. Sleeveless. Let's go. One trend you think is overrated in the strength conditioning or speed worlds?
Probably GPS data. And I know some guys that do it really well, and like it's super structured. But I think aside from those few guys, I don't know if it's necessary for everybody.
Yeah, I like it.
All right. Over under 1 minute, the time it would take you to pin Derek Smith right now in a wrestling match.
Under. I'll bet the mortgage on it.
Oh my God. He is injured though. Didn't he just come off a back injury or something?
Doesn't matter.
You're cheating. All right. Best investment for a school weight room under $1,000.
Under $1,000
ish.
Everything's
expensive right now.
Everything's so expensive.
There's not much under $1,000.
Yeah, under 1,000, I would probably say either bands or I'd just say bands.
Yeah.
All right. 4th and goal at the 6-yard line, left hash. What you calling?
Ooh. Can't call home special because we don't have enough room.
Yeah, he had his own play, Daniel, by the way.
Yeah. Now I do like Trojan special just because Trey's got the option to run it.
Yes. Anything where Trey can run or throw, we like.
Yeah, that's good. All right, here you go. One, trying to throw anybody under the bus. Athlete red flags that coaches should watch out for, and then how do you work with them to get past those things? Let's start with the red flag, and we'll worry about the coaching it later. What's something we need to be looking out for?
Red flag is in
like you're going to have problems with this kid.
Yeah. So I guess just non-compliance. Did you want multiple? I'm sorry.
No,
You're good
I
on
mean, if
that.
non-compliance is it, like an
I get
example
it.
would be nice, but once again,
Yeah,
we don't want
yeah,
anybody's names out there.
non-compliance to the point that it's negatively impacting those around them. So everybody's not going to be as juiced up in the weight room as maybe Coach Holmes. Everybody's not going to love it, and I 100% understand that. However, if they're non-compliant to the point of they're bringing others to that point as well, it's just something that it can't be tolerated. So
Love it. I love it. Standards, baby.
Top three favorite athletes you've had the chance to work with.
Personally, I've named two of them: Gage Wood, Eli Livingston. Played quarterback and then played at OBU, and third would be Frank Ragnow. That's when I was at Arkansas. All three of those guys were super genetically blessed, but they also would do anything that anybody told them if they thought that it would help them or the team. So all three, you could have told them, hey, go roll around on those hot coals because this is going to help you and it's going to help our team. No questions asked. They'd be out there rolling on them. So
I love it. All right, last one from me here. Best advice you ever received as a coach?
Man, I've been around some really, really good coaches. Best advice. I'm trying to think of one I've got on my desk. It's on a note card, pinned up on my desk. But I'm not going to use that one just because I can't remember the exact quote. But a good one, I actually used it today in a text, was the excuse habit and the success habit don't go together.
Woo.
Good one. Real good. All right, last one for me, and then we'll kind of wrap up here. I know we got a big question about resources, but so if logistics didn't matter, like you don't have to worry about your family or your kids or whatever, like it's just dream world here, and you could have your dream coaching job, where would it be? What would it be?
Man, this sounds like super AI generated, but I honestly don't have I was at a dream school of mine when I was at the U of A, and there were things about that were just so incredible. But that lifestyle was not incredible as far as the family goes. And so I've been blessed, honestly, the place I was at before and the place I'm at now, like I'm living in an area that I love. I get to hunt and fish and see my family, my parents. And so, kind of what I'm doing now. I mean, it's
a little bit to that, kind of getting to see like you said, that wasn't the best schedule, but you got to see what it looks like. What does the foundation there look like? And then you go out and use it. Where some guys would be like, no, I just want to stay in the hustle and bustle my whole life. Like, I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm too much of a small town guy, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome, man. Well, as we kind of close out here, I can't remember if we asked earlier about resources or not. My brain is mixing our pre-recording chat to the actual recording. But we understand that you're trying to help people get better. Where can people reach out to you, and what resources do you provide to coaches? I know we've already had hey, can I get a template? So like, where do people go to reach out to you and gain that type of resource?
Yeah. Currently kind of putting resources together like that to provide to coaches. The easiest way is either through my cell, which is 870-512-8900, or they can shoot me an email at phperformancellc@gmail.com.
I'm putting that in the chat right now.
Perfect. I'm sure we'll put it in the notes and you guys can get it. So, because I'm telling you right now, I've only been around Price, like, is working with him now for 5 or 6 months, but about as genuine as you can get. So he's a guy that I've tried to encourage. I think he's a guy that can impact not only our community, but he's a guy that I think if you want to reach out to him and help your school, I would highly, highly recommend at least a phone call and talk to him. If not, figure out what he can do to help your program.
I want to ask a kind of an odd one here, but if I just had a guy on staff that I wanted to make the strength and conditioning guy, he may or may not know a bunch about it yet. Is there any kind of an academy, a school, somewhere I can send them that they can gain the fundamentals of Olympic lifts and, not, we don't want to kill any of our kids. We want to get the more than the minimum dosage and we don't want to burn the state. Kind of how do I send a kid or a guy to go learn all that and where to? What's that resource look like?
Yeah, so I'm actually the Arkansas president, which is whatever that means, of the NHSSCA, the National High School Strength Coaches Association, and that's been super valuable to me, that organization. And because when you go to one of those clinics, they have state clinics, regional clinics, and then the national conference, and you're listening to guys that are dealing with the same stuff that we are, like an 8-period class schedule day or block schedule day, or you've got kids that are playing baseball, basketball, running track, or so you're dealing with people that are working with the same age group. I go to other clinics as well, and some of those are based on some like CEUs I need to get. It's more structured around the college and professional realm.
Right.
So when I go and listen to those, I gain stuff, but it's not, I'm not working with 120 elite level athletes. Yeah. I'm working with high school kids. Our high school kids are a lot like your high school kids. And so those clinics, those resources have been super beneficial for me, and I think would be for anybody.
I assume that's probably a lot like AFCA and stuff like that, where you hear all the super great stuff, but you get like one golden nugget, right? Because I can't take the Baylor Bears defensive system and operate it at its fullest at my local high school. It's just not going to work. Now, we don't have those kind of kids. So I assume strength and conditioning is probably the same way.
Yeah, I mean, like, our cover 2 safety is not going to be an A-gap fitter, or this guy's not going to be, he's not 6'4", 330 running a 4.8. Right. He's not a 2-gap kid. So you can get some good stuff from the big football clinics. And then there's things that aren't applicable, I think, to us. And same thing with the strength and conditioning. Like, we could look at every piece of GPS data, velocity-based training, all these different metrics are super beneficial. But I think at times, not saying that stuff's not applicable, but we may not be in a situation where we could even handle that. So.
Yeah. Very much understood, man. All right. Let's go ahead and close it out here. Remember, guys, jump over to acesports.com. Right now is the perfect time. If you're wanting to get a video board, even if you're not really, you don't care about the video board of it, if you want to start bringing some monies into your school, Ace Sports, I think, is the best way to do that on the large scale idea. You get them in front of your admin now. Let them show you what they can do for video boards and increasing your fan atmosphere and just the overall culture around your school. It could be basketball gyms. Look, I spent the whole last weekend in Tampa with Michael Beaumont, listening to him talk about Fort Smith North and South's gyms and how they rival D1 places, right? And yours doesn't have to be that extravagant, or it can be. You can kind of build your dream with Ace, but then allowing your school to start raking in that money. It pays for the board. Or you pay the board by itself with the ad revenue, and all that money goes in your pocket for the next, 10 or 15 years. Kenny, how old's your board now? It's got to be over 10 years old, right?
The one at Southside is getting right up on it. I know we just redid and kind of did basically a second run where people contributed if they wanted to be on the board. We have new sponsors. Yeah. So you're able to generate not just money for the board, but now they've generated extra income. We can upgrade our facilities kind of around the field.
Yeah. And having them come in and hold your hand and walk you through getting the board, getting the ad revenue started, paying for the board. And this is how you keep making money for the remainder of the life of that board. 5 years labor warranty, 10 years parts warranty. I don't think you can really go wrong using Ace Sports. Go over to acesports.com or email mark.bridges@acesports.com to kind of get started today. Once again, it's the best time right now. Get them in front of your admin, lay out your dream, and let them work for the next couple months and get something installed. And then also want to mention Winning Edge Performance Analytics. Like I said earlier, It's time now to get in so that you understand what you're doing. Don't let this become a hurdle you got to jump on the first night of the season because you didn't spend time getting better at it. It is a heck of a tool. In-game analytics is huge. Being able to see what's working, what isn't, with more than just your gut feeling. Not that your gut feeling doesn't work, but what things are and aren't working by the numbers. I'm a big data guy, so I like to see percentages. But then on Saturday, everything is tagged. You don't have to wait, an hour or two for your guys to go in and tag film before you can start cutting it up or finding solutions to problems, whatever. So winningedgeperformanceanalytics.com or reach out to Doug today. Sweet. Social media wise, Coach Price, where are you at on social media, man?
On Twitter, that's probably what I typically use the most. It's at Price Holmes _. And then on Instagram, kind of use 2 different accounts, PH Performance LLC, and then just Price Holmes.
Perfect. I am at Coach Chamber OK on Twitter, and then you can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. And then the Patreon is back open. So if you guys looking to be developed as a coach or get a younger guy on staff developed, if you're a parent, you just want to know more about football, jump over to patreon.com/chamberlainfootballconsulting. And I bet there's a tier for you. If not, holler at me and I'll create something and we'll make it work. Kenny, where are you at, sir?
All things FB Coach Simpson, fbcoachsimpson.com, at FB Coach Simpson, or fbcoachsimpson@gmail.com. I'm on Instagram, but I don't know how to use it because I'm old. So it's probably just my normal account.
I love it. You can find him on text message.
Right.
It's the best. All right, the podcast is at Coaching101Pod on Twitter/X. Coach Holmes, man, we greatly appreciate you jumping on. We hope you guys have a wonderful holiday as we're getting into the Christmas time here, just a few days away now. So holiday is upon us. I want to thank you all for being a listener to the Coaching 101 podcast. We'll hope you'll join us next week as we continue to make the complex more simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you'll always know when the new episodes are out. We'll leave you with this. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up, no matter the situation. Find a way.